Love, Death and Robots is a great series. And when I heard it's getting a season 4, I immediately wrote down the exact date that shit was gonna come out. I binged the whole of season 4 in one night, and I do not regret it. I kind of do. I lack sleep. I should sleep more. If you're not familiar with Love, Death and Robots, it's an anthology series which focuses on a ton of different stories and animation styles, and it's basically an excuse for studios and directors to show off very creative and innovative animation that pushes the envelope in a new direction. Most people who watch Love, Death and Robots watch it because of those individual, really gripping episodes. Episodes like Bad Traveling, Secret War, Zima Blue are all really impactful moments in pop culture that everyone who's watched the series knows and loves. So let's see how season 4 holds up and rank the whole thing. By the way, spoiler alert for season 4 and possibly episodes from the whole show. You have been warned. This episode is interesting. It's a far cry from anything we've seen before, and it's quite strange. So starting off, the visual style and the technical animation are all brilliant. Okay, don't get me wrong. The uncanny valley feeling you get just by looking at the hyper-realistic faces and heads on tiny bodies, it's pretty interesting and pretty creative in some respects. But that's where it ends, because this episode is a music video. It's just a music video. That's it, it's just a music video. There is no plot, there is no character, there is no development of any kind. You could close your eyes, listen to the music, and you'd get the exact same experience as listening to Can't Stop on Spotify. Now that may sound harsh, but you have to understand that people expect a certain standard from Love, Death and Robots, especially coming off the heels of giants like, again, Zima Blue, Bad Traveling, Sonia's Edge. All of these classic episodes from previous seasons really uphold the image that Love, Death and Robots isn't about gags and comedy, but more about profound stories showcasing really innovative and creative animation. And the animation here is interesting and good and technically very brilliant. I couldn't do anything like this, but the story isn't at all, okay? Like, there are moments where you expect something interesting to happen, like when a guy's strings get set on fire and you think the whole stadium is gonna go up in flames. There isn't even a broader narrative about how this band is being controlled by the music industry like puppets on a string. The whole puppet motif feels more like a novelty than anything else. It isn't really used in interesting ways besides creative animation or fun gags here and there. Don't get me wrong, there have been previous episodes and seasons where there were a lot of gags or one-note episodes. But here's the thing, all of those episodes had some sort of narrative or purpose or message being conveyed. This has none of that, but that's what people come to the show to watch. They want to see innovative animation, but that means nothing if you can't really convey an interesting story, which is why this has to go in D tier. Close Encounters of the Minikind follows an episode about aliens coming to Earth and humanity getting a bit too trigger happy and causing an alien invasion. This is a fun episode. It's visually interesting, the little gags with all the little minis running around is pretty fun, even though it's kind of gross at times. The visual animation around all the aliens and their weapons and technology is not incredibly creative, but it's done so well that I feel like they get a pass. That being said, this is just straight up the Night of the Mini-Dead, but aliens. I'm sure a lot of people really loved the Night of the Mini-Dead. Heck, I loved it too. I remember watching it and thinking, what the hell, this is just getting crazier and crazier and crazier, and now the present, what, nukes? Oh my gosh, the Earth blew up. If Night of the Mini-Dead was never released, and this is what we got, I guarantee you people would love it. But the fact that it's the exact same formula over again really takes it down. C tier. Spider Rose follows the story of Spider Rose, cyborg lady. She's all alone in an asteroid belt, mining coke, I assume, and she gets approached by aliens looking to do some trade. She wants to buy weapons from them because she wants to use them to kill the people who killed her husband, but the aliens are like, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. We don't do that no more. And then she basically gets roped into being a babysitter for their pet monkey alien axolotl? I don't know what this thing is. After losing her husband, she builds companionship with this pet who transforms into their owner a little, which is pretty interesting. The most interesting aspects of the story are the beginning and the end. The middle is a bit too jumbled for my liking. It's like a montage straight into an action scene that isn't that compelling in my opinion. The action is visually interesting and very technically well done. The voice acting is on point, the sound design is great, but the villain was quite underwhelming. The most interesting aspect of this story is the twist at the end, where you think she's gonna let this creature eat her and become her husband. It actually becomes her, and it really feels like the pilot to a pretty interesting narrative. Overall, I would put it in A tier. I've seen other people criticize this episode for being kind of all over the place and wishy-washy, but I liked it.
Not tonight.
400 Boys sounds like the title of a porno. Coming from the team that gave us Zima Blue and Ice, 400 Boys is filled with that same level of style. But if I had to give an actual narrative, it would boil down to literal class consciousness being expressed with telekinesis while they fight giant babies. It immediately throws you into a narrative where every character relates to every other character in some interesting way, and it doesn't try to explain every single character relation or plot point. It just drops you into a story and a narrative and is like, enjoy. The previous episodes of Zima Blue and Ice were more so focused around character and narrative. This episode really allows the style to be used to its absolute peak, and the way it manages to combine 2D and 3D space in such a seamless and creative fashion is so visually appealing. When animators can combine elements like this so well, you really get something special. A tier. Now you might be thinking, why is it just an A tier? Why not S tier? Well, I feel like the narrative overall was a little lacking. Throughout the episode, you're constantly second guessing what this threat is. Is it like aliens? Are they giant monsters? What's going on? But when it's revealed that they're just giant killer babies, it is surprising and it's an interesting, fun reveal, but I was expecting a little more. That's the only criticism I can really give of this episode, and when faced with the fact that the overall narrative doesn't really serve itself to be that compelling or emotive, I have to place it in A tier.
They are also wondering what happens to all of the tuna.
Tell them nothing.
We follow the story of a melomaniacal supervillain cat who has grandiose plans of taking over the world, if only he could overcome his stupid owners. I do really like the visual stylization of the people in this episode, and I really dislike the trope of owners not being able to understand their pets, but their pets are somehow able to understand them. And in this episode, they go full tilt into that.
He's the best baby boy.
The episode starts to get interesting once this assistant robot is introduced, basically made to do all of their chores and be kicked around. The muscle-brain dynamic between the robot and the cat isn't new, but it's still fresh enough to feel interesting and kind of funny in some respects. But the main kicker of this episode is the moment you realize that this is a prologue to the 3 Robots episodes, which is pretty funny, but it kind of takes away from the whole episodic nature of Love, Death, and Robots as a whole. Because in seasons 1 and 2, we started off with the 3 robots exploring a post-apocalyptic Earth, and it would have felt too repetitive in season 3, so I'm glad it wasn't included there. But still including something akin to it in season 4, while is fun and does relate back to the show's roots, it does feel kind of like a waste. Thankfully, there are moments in the episode that are pretty funny.
You speak God's language.
And if this was just another 3 Robots episode, I would have treated it the same as the minis. But choosing to focus on how the humans actually were taken over by cats is an interesting area of that story that was otherwise just a gag. So overall, I'm pretty happy with this episode. It's not the most compelling or visually interesting, but it does what it needs to do and it does what it wants to do, and it actually did make me laugh sometimes, so B tier.
I think we may have gone off on the wrong foot here.
We do not have feet.
Religion? Jesus tier! This episode was a big surprise. Not because of the Christian octopus alien, never thought I'd say that. Instead because it's mostly real people and real places. in an animated anthology series about animated stories? Excuse me? D tier. In all seriousness, if that was my only problem with this episode, it would be higher. But the problem is, there are so many problems. This episode feels more like a cross between Black Mirror and Love, Death and Robots. It doesn't really know what it's trying to say, but it also really does, if you get what I'm saying. Plus, this guy is not blonde. Like, really? So basically, Christian octopus alien has discovered that their messiah has been reborn on Earth as a fish, and good Christian man comes to talk to this alien and hopefully convince them not to destroy the world. Now, that does sound like an interesting concept that would make for a perfect Love, Death and Robots episode if it didn't take itself so unseriously. Like, every single character, besides the octopus alien, acts more like a cartoon than the octopus alien. If it just took itself a bit more seriously and had more time to flesh out its concept, then I feel like this would have been a compelling episode. But it's in and out so quick that it shoehorns its message to you without actually giving it enough time to breathe. But that message is still kind of bad.
We fucked up.
It's going in D tier. It has to go in D tier. I want to put it in Christ tier, but it has to go in D tier. The screaming of the Tyrannosaur sounds like an interesting concept for a banger episode, if not for Mr. B! What the heck is he doing here? Some people might not like it, but putting dinosaurs in space is the epitome of Love, Death and Robots, and having people race those dinosaurs along a big space wheel is just as interesting. You're immediately hit with the impression that this is a unlawful, sadistic death game made to please apathetic elites. And it's kind of strange that Mr. Beast said yes to this, because he is performing exactly what he does in real life, but the episode is a blatant critique of him and his content. But ooh, dinosaur. All that being said, the predictability comes in the narrative. You're immediately shown who our main character is, so surprise surprise, she wins the race because she's the only one with dialogue, and surprise surprise, her love interest gets eaten by a twist T-Rex villain, and surprise surprise, she fights back against the system that oppresses her. It would have been way more interesting if they didn't immediately establish who the main character was, or even if we witnessed the race from the perspective of a couple audience members. That has way more room for different perspectives and narrative play than just watching them run around a circle while being chased by dinosaurs. I want to give it a B for Mr. Beast, but this has to go in C tier. How Zeke got religion? Jesus tier. How Zeke got religion basically follows the crew of pro-World War II bomber plane fighters as they try to bomb a church. No questions asked, just orders. They're a one-man mission deep into Nazi territory, and they exceed in bombing the church, where some Nazis are doing some Nazi shenanigans and trying to summon demons from hell. It's an S tier, if you couldn't tell. So without me spoiling too much, go and watch it. It really does feel like every season has an episode where someone, usually Nazis, summon an eldritch demon from hell. And How Zeke Got Religion fits that premise perfectly, because anyone would believe in God after seeing this thing. It's also definitely the most visually distinct and creative style out of any episode this season. And yes, I'm including 400 Boys when I say that. How Zeke Got Religion has similarities in its animation to 400 Boys, because you're constantly second guessing what is 2D, what is 3D, and it's all done within this grainy 1950s comic book style that just perfectly matches the terrifying visuals. The episode doesn't really leave you with an incredibly profound message, but it's still an action-packed and thrilling ride. All the cast members are distinct and play off of each other really well to create this chemistry that feels believable while also focusing enough on the characters that they really want you to pay attention to, such as Zeke. Zeke is a secular man, doesn't believe in God, only believes in what he can see, hear, and touch. And lo and behold, he sees, hears, and touches the insides of his comrades. The way this thing is designed really makes you think that it is not of this world. It's constantly changing shape with this amorphous, asymmetrical body. When it gets shot, it forms mouths that spit out all the bullets, and when it gets hit with a cross, it cracks and screams. Everything about the way this thing is designed is so perfect for the setting because it builds up mystery but also a solution, a problem. And yes, you could probably easily guess that the thing which harms the demon from hell is a cross or a Bible, but the pace of the episode moves so quickly that you don't really get a chance to think about that. And you discover that that is the case as the characters themselves are discovering it, not without most of them dying, of course. I wouldn't say that this episode reaches the peaks of the absolute best Love, Death and Robots has to offer, but it's definitely the best episode of this season, and sadly it does leave you with the worst and best feeling that you can get from watching this show, because you know there's not going to be an episode 2. S tier.
But I would prefer to keep it professional. I just want to be friends. Oh, okay.
Smart Appliances, Stupid Owners is an episode about sentient home appliances venting about their stupid owners. I watched a TikTok that was more impactful than this whole episode. Some of the gags are funny, like the personality of the AC unit or the toothbrush is pretty on point.
Fucking floss, man.
And I would like to see more of that, but that's kind of where it ends. And for an episode that isn't any more than 5 minutes long, only getting a couple laughs out of the viewer is pretty disappointing.
This dude eats a lot of lentils.
And this episode has so many famous celebrities that it really just felt like they were trying to include a bunch of big names so that they could get eyes on this season without actually paying attention to the story or the character or the plot or the reason why people watch Love, Death and Robots in the first place. So I'd have to give something like this a D tier.
Hello, Joffrey.
For he can creep. Cats fighting Satan to save their doomed owner. Sounds like a really fun concept on paper, and it is, but this episode strikes a very similar itch to the other large thing, and it's not really that funny. There were points where I did have a laugh. Satan is by far the most interesting and funny character in this whole episode, but it's first and foremost a gag episode.
Sir, you cannot rhyme love with dove. It is banal. I shall not allow it.
The Shakespearean style of its narrative, like the prelude, interlude, conclusion, it's all really fun and plays into the concept really nicely, but when you've got one character who's carrying the whole episode, it sort of feels a bit one note, and it doesn't really help that there's another entire episode with the same exact premise. I still think overall that this episode is one of the better ones of the whole season, which is saying something, but I'd be lying to you if I said it was anywhere above a C tier. All in all, this season was kind of a disappointment. There were a few good episodes and funny moments, but even by the standard of season 1 with its fair share of gag episodes, season 4 is just a pale imitation of what Love, Death and Robots used to be. Hopefully in season 5 they remember why people keep coming back to this franchise and give us more things like Bad Traveling, Pop Squad, Beyond the Acolyte Rift, Sonya's Edge, Secret War, Zima Blue. There are so many classics that this show has to offer, and if they just look back and understand why those became classics, then that could lead them to make something that really reaches those heights. I'm not asking them to rehash old concepts, Lord knows they've been doing that a lot this season, but just to rethink and understand why people come back to this show so much and why so many people love it. But those are just my thoughts. Feel free to disagree with me in the comments and tell me how season 4 was your favorite season and how it's the second coming of Christ, yada yada yada. And if you like this video, subscribe. And if you want me to do more videos like this, subscribe and leave a like and comment. Bye.